The smartest investor is always going to make the best investor. Stay tuned. Guys, welcome to this week's edition of Note School TV, and today is our monthly market update. I know you guys love this edition of the show every month, and Eddie and I actually we love to present it. Okay, so three things I'd like for you to do for me before we get started. And number one is, hey, like the content you see. Just hit the like button. And number two, if you have not already subscribed to our Note School TV channel, please make sure and do that as well. And then finally, make sure and hit that bell notification. Yes, go ahead and do it now. Hit that bell notification so that you will be informed before we go live every Wednesday at 11:05 p.m. When? Every Wednesday at 11:05 p.m. Also, we love your comments. Keep those coming. The questions that you send in every week, keep those coming, guys. We want to hear from you. We want you to stay plugged in with us. And to do that, and just go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. So we are going to jump right into it today because, well, there's a lot going on in the world, right? So I'm going to bring on, well, Note School's founder, our chief visionary officer, all around good guy, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Hello, Joe.
Good morning.
The smartest investor is the best investor, but how do we get smart?
That's it.
We get smart by knowing what's going on in the market, and that is the intent that we are trying to help you guys with, is give you some market facts so that you can develop that information and process that information and put you in a smart position to make good decisions, right? So, Joe, we got a new breaking news. And that is, we have a new definition of a recession.
Yeah.
Yeah, the White House came out with it and told us that, well, we're not thinking straight on this. So, so basically, good news is, you know, we now know we can make a smart decision because we know what a recession means now. Now we thought we knew, and there was kind of like what we thought was a definition, but there's a lot more clarity now. The president come out and said, the White House said that GDP in the first quarter this year, a decline there, and then a GDP decline in the second quarter also. But Joe, understand this says even though that happened, it says that there's not a recession.
Right.
Second consecutive quarter of negative GDP, unlikely to be indicative of a recession. And you can imagine, Joe, there is different views about whether that's really a new definition or a political definition.
You're exactly right.
So
that's all I've got to say about that.
Drop the mic on that one, Joe. Drop the mic on that one.
Kaboom, right?
Oh, Lordy. And then we get to whose fault is it? Now, Joe, there's a lot of people to blame right now, right? Because if something happens, there is always a finger to point. The question is should we just all point to all of them?
That's right.
Whose fault is it, Joe? Wall Street Journal writes about this.
Who do we blame? Is it former President Trump? Is it current President Biden? Is it Chairman of the Fed, Mr. Powell? Is it Jeff Bezos from Amazon? I mean, who do we blame?
So here's the issue. The issue, Joe, is this.
Yeah.
The consumer sentiment is, and this was a study that was done by the University of Michigan. It was in the Wall Street Journal, but it's been in a lot of news sources. We just happened to pick this one. Wall Street Journal was our little favorite this week, right? You know, for some reason, but which isn't always the case. But consumer sentiment, Joe, is, if I draw the line back.
This kind of blows me away, Eddie.
That is 1980 right there, and we are lower in consumer sentiment right now, Joe, than we were in 1980. And any time in between. 1980? By the way, Joe, that is a 42-year span.
Tell us what happened in 1980, Eddie. Tell us where we were.
Well, a kid who grew up in a cattle auction barn in Mississippi started in the note buying business at 20 years old. His name was Eddie Speed.
Right.
And interest rates reached as high as 20%. And it was quite a day to be in the business. And a lot of people are looking at this market right now, Joe, and they're looking at it as fear, because a lot of people are in fear. Mm-hmm. And so there's two ways to look at it. I can run from the fire, or I can get properly positioned, properly protected, and I can run into the fire.
That's right.
And Joe, you and I got our fire suit on, and we are
rebreather, all of that.
We got it happening, and we are running to the flame, because this is going to produce what we believe is the biggest opportunity we've seen in a long time. But we got to understand that there probably are some changes in the market because of that. And consumer sentiment, I think, is really, really, really a big factor. So right. University of Michigan just released this, and pretty factor. Let's talk about business sentiment, Joe.
Yeah. So, well, everything points to, we had the pandemic start, and then we had stimulus checks, and then we had, businesses were closing and got hit hard, and then the goods couldn't come in to the United States. There were ships parked off the coast of Long Beach, California, at every port in the United States, and it was a challenge. And now we look that things could get back to normal, but the biggest problem was that all of these other things have happened. Now there's all these excess goods, and that's a challenge.
So right now we're at this, Joe. I'm taking my little red pen and marking that. Mm-hmm. That's where we are in the index, and we are the lowest we have been in 9 years, according to this chart. And the chart below, Joe, is called Business Activity Outlook Index.
Right.
And that's where businesses see going forward. And you can see right here in my red pen again, we are at a 61 level, and we haven't been that since I don't know when, but
ever.
Well, 2000. Is it the lowest ever?
Well, it's lowest on record. Yeah, look in red right above the mark there. Lowest on record.
Lowest on record.
Yeah.
So look, Joe, if FOMO was taking over last year, fear of missing out, then fear is seemingly taking over this year, right? It's both fear. One of them people think they got to get in. The other one people are thinking opposite. And Joe, this could be one reason that home builders are reacting the way they're reacting. Let's talk about that.
Well, the index says that, well, you made a good comment when we were talking earlier, Eddie, about, home builders, what was it you said? Home builders will use their hammer until.
Well, the index drops 12 points to 55. So there's an index for home builders.
Yes, there are.
And it's dropped, call it about 20%. Right. There's an old saying that is, a home builder will keep building until you take his hammer away. Okay. What I believe is causing this plummet in builder confidence is the money that's supporting the builder. In other words, the builder might build as long as the lender's willing to give him money, but what I believe is the backstory behind that is the builder's money sources are going, we're fixing to put the handcuffs on it.
We're going to pull back on the reins, and you're exactly right. So the this index was expected to be at 66, and it ends up at 55. So, again, the inventory of houses, they don't want to get caught, right? Remember,
Joe, this report says it's the seventh consecutive monthly decline.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so,
and the second largest drop on record.
All right. So home building is slowing, and you can see right there exactly where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much that issue is indicated with that drop right there. Now, look, that's not as low as it was in 2009. And, there's other variables along the way, Joe, but understand we're not, and you say, well, when was that big issue right there? And that was at the beginning of the pandemic.
Exactly right.
Here's the issue, Joe. The issue behind a lot of this is the capital markets, the mortgage industry, a lot of things that really are telling us that's why home builders and their lenders, this is what's causing them a great deal of concern. Affordability due to high rates. And
Eddie, I just got a blurb from a friend of ours, Bill McBride at Calculated Risk. And, the comment was let's see, the all-time record high of inventory was 12.1 months supply in January of 2009, which you can, we went back to that previously. And then the all-time low was 3.5 months in October of 2020. So, it's slowing it down and being a little bit cautious.
Joe, I used to ignore a lot of stuff on social media.
Right.
Because I'm a member of several real estate investor groups. And I used to force myself not to read stuff because, I would get frustrated.
Yes, absolutely.
And so now I've changed my mind. I've read stuff that's a very different opinion than mine. In some cases, a very not so seasoned opinion. Sometimes some issues, they are seasoned. They just, what they're selling is saying real estate could go down in value is, arbitrary. There's no way they're going to say that because they're selling the dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I started really understanding, to read these other views. It helps me help how people think. And we don't have a crystal ball. Joe and I can't say markets are going to drop absolutely in every market, every situation. I have a very, very, very seasoned real estate investor friend of mine that's in a mastermind that I was doing a training alongside the other day at one of the high-end masterminds, and we were doing it on Zoom. And he is in Salt Lake, and he said we had a frothy market, and the market increased 25% last year. In the last 90 days, it's dropped 20%.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. If that don't make you sit up and listen, then you just know that, not every market's going to be Salt Lake City. There's a lot of markets in the West that are clearly suffering. It's not new news. And so we just wanted to show you guys that this recession and home builders are definitely concerned. Okay, Joe, let's talk about it. 9.1% inflation.
9.1%. That was the latest. That was for June. I was sourcing this while we were preparing this. The next, for July will come out August 10th. We'll see what that will be. But yeah, this has continually climbed from, went from 8.5 to 8.6 to 7.9, and now we're up at 9.1. And I think people feel it every day, right? Every day.
the Fed is going to release its results here in a little while, and
About an hour.
we're going to get to know what they think about this.
We are. Yep. So about 2:00 this afternoon Eastern time, the Fed chair will come on and make his announcements. Right.
Well, Joe, the ships finally have landed.
Yes, they have. So all of that, hundreds of ships that were parked off the coast of California have started delivering goods. And so that has resulted in a glut of consumer products. Wow, I sounded like a professional news person there when I said that, right? A glut of consumer products. And now, and by the way, they cut their profits outlook, Eddie, 10%. That came out yesterday morning, Tuesday morning, and that's big. Some of the the people that follow this kind of stuff said that was a crash in Walmart stock. But all of these goods now, it'll be a good result for the lower price retailers like TJ Maxx and Marshalls, but it's clothing, it's patio furniture, it's lawn mowers, it's all of these things that we import every day are finally hitting the shores. And
here's the problem, Joe. The problem is the Fed is trying to stop consumer spending.
Right.
Okay. And now all of a sudden this is going to accelerate consumer spending.
Yep.
Right. All right, Joe, the affordability index. We have another record here, another record breaker, Joe. And that is, if we look back, we saw it get close to this in, around 2006.
The Great Recession.
Obviously,
right?
back in the 90s. But this is a record, at least for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And so affordability index, Joe, here's the problem. Here's the big problem, right? This is what I keep saying. We don't even have high mortgage rates.
That's right.
I mean, if you look at mortgage rates right now compared to what's normal over the last 50 years, and we'll show that to you before we leave today, it's not even, the problem isn't even happened yet.
That's right.
Right? If this arrow is pointing that far down now, then what happens when mortgage rates continue to go up? And you're going, well, that's not going to happen. Okay, we'll see.
Eddie, the Fed is going to meet 3 more times this year. They'll meet in September, November, and December. And we'll see. But it's interesting. It'd be interesting to take that line and draw it straight up there at the 2010 to 2014 category, where it's all the way up there.
Yeah.
And then when we look at the interest rates, it'll be interesting to see what the interest rates on that rate chart is at that point in time, right?
The point is there's 2 things. When they run this index, they assume the most affordable rates.
Yes.
And Fannie Mae has dropped from 75% of market share to 55%.
Right.
Fannie Freddie. So understand that the biggest lender with the cheapest rates has lost big time market share. And so the real rate that people are paying are actually more than that, which really does affect even more the affordability factor. Joe, historical mortgage rates over the past 50 years, average since 1971, the average is 7.7%.
Yep.
Joe, you and I thrive in high rate markets.
That's right.
Right. This is this rabbit's briar patch.
Yes.
You get the point?
I get it.
We are amped up about the opportunity. Now, anytime you're a distressed buyer, anytime you're a contrarian market condition guy, and we are, pretty much everybody on here is, right? If you're trying to buy houses at a discount, you're a contrarian market condition guy. You're trying to buy something at a discount, right? So understand that this is getting our mind right for understanding the battle ahead and the opportunities that we're after. So we're just trying to show you guys that at the current mortgage rates right now in the current situation, the battle really hasn't even kicked off yet.
No.
right? We got very used to what I call false rates.
We did. We did.
And by the way,
memory was very short, Eddie, of what the rates really, what the average rate normally is, right? Well, 2.99%, you know?
Well, if you go look at this, Joe, and then you go back and look at inflation back through the 70s, which they didn't deal with early on as well as they should, then all of a sudden you go look back and then you look up here at these inflation rates, then you start realizing, this seems like a market very akin to that.
Yeah.
And by the way, it isn't just Joe and Eddie's opinion. There's a lot of popular opinion amongst economists that see it that way. Well, everybody's trying to compare us to 2008. It ain't the same set of issues.
No, not
right. So if I see one more post on Facebook of somebody running some analysis between 2008 and today and saying, see, there's nothing going to happen because it's not like 2008.
Yeah.
That's
more to come.
Joe, my old friend used to say the questions are going to get harder than that.
And Eddie, when you go back to that sentiment rate, right, between 1980 and today, and those lines just intersect, just like you just drew across there. Again, it's just mind blowing what the figures really show, right? What the stats really show.
How do you become the smartest investor that makes the best decisions? You become an informed investor. Right. All right, Joe. This is an ongoing thing, and this is really cool because it's a heat map.
Yes.
So you can go to realtor.com and you can look at a heat map. Right. And this heat map starts taking your area and showing property areas that and the value and what's overvalued and what's not. Now, by the way, that screenshot that you took, that color looks quite a bit different now. You just happened to took a screenshot at the end of the year.
Right.
But let me tell you guys that this heat map is showing you there is a lot of overvalued areas, and a lot of areas out west are really, really, really dramatically feeling it.
That's right.
Boise, Salt Lake City, Phoenix, California markets. Like, let me just tell you something. And if you live a little further east and you say, well, those poor old guys out west, they're getting slaughtered because the market's going down, the values are going down, but that's not going to happen to us. Let me just tell you that there is a very distinct pattern of market swinging from the west to the east. So
100%.
So understand that I can't say in exactly what market you're in. Some markets are not overvalued, but there is a lot of markets that are overvalued. And this is a pretty cool heat map. And
if you do go to realtor.com, you can go in there and it's interactive. You can touch that map and it'll show you. But isn't it interesting that Idaho is that it's that deep dark red, right?
Well, I mean, here I live here in Dallas-Fort Worth. I mean, and it's called at the moment, it's called 41% overvalued. So it's not just, it isn't just the boom markets out west that saw this. So, Joe, let's talk about rentals. Obviously, one thing that people talk about is if I keep my rentals, I'm going to keep raising the rate. Let's talk about what that means.
Well, Eddie, when you can say, yeah, I'll just keep raising the rents, but you can raise the rents until you can't, right? And that's the biggest challenge here when you're looking at the orange and the blue numbers there, and so they go up 16 consecutive months. How high can it go?
So this is exactly some things that I'm hearing in the market and from industry friends, and so there's realtor.com. They're saying that we're seeing a decline in rents, and obviously you can speak to your market and your personal experiences, and they may be different, but on statistically, this big run up that we saw, this big run up in rates, all of those numbers in there in rent rates, Joe, it's called can people afford to pay the rent?
That's it. And
Joe, this is not what they say on Facebook.
I know.
Because what they say on Facebook is that rents are going to grow to the sky, right? They're going. That's what they say on Facebook. Well, whatever.
They passed the moon. They're headed to Mars, guys.
All right, Joe. This chart shows a crossing line here, and the blue represents monthly rent.
Right.
Okay.
And the red.
And then the red represents a monthly payment on a mortgage. So for a long time, the red, the mortgage payment, and then we crossed that line, Joe, about when rates started getting up, probably about March of this year, April of this year, and rates started getting up. And once again, affordability is, you can build a spreadsheet and you can put all kind of formulas in there. And some of these really smart guys do that. But when the guy has more month than he has checkbook, right? He has more month than he has money in his checking account to pay for it. Something's got to give. And that's it.
Eddie, the thing that I, it comes back to me is that, and this happened very quickly, right? So when the rate started here, and then these lines it crosses and goes up. But you looked at, a year ago, rates were less than 3% for the best borrowers, right? Not for the best qualified mortgage borrowers.
Yeah, but Fannie Freddie had a lot bigger market share a year ago, Joe.
Yeah, and now, but that's, yeah.
Okay, so that's a variable. Joe, congratulations to BlackRock. They became the first hedge fund in the world to reach $10 trillion in assets under management. Right?
10 trillion, Eddie, not billion, but trillion.
$10 trillion assets under management. But Joe, here's the bad news. Not so much congratulations on this. In 6 months, Joe, they've lost $1.7 trillion. How do you do that?
Well, they just made some miscalculations in some of the bond markets and the electronic funds, the ELT markets, and all of those. And but what happens sometimes, being the biggest is not the best, because when you've got $10 trillion to invest, that's a lot of money to move around, isn't it?
Yeah. I will tell you something. I believe that the shock wave of this is a far bigger story yet to unfold. But I'm saying to you that within 6 months, if you've lost close to 20%, you've lost 20% of the money of assets under management, lost the capital, lost their dough, right? Lost their money, not lack of return, lack of, I can't pay you all your money back. That to me is a shock wave. And I believe, Joe, that we're going to hear further shock waves in the marketplace. I mentioned the capital markets and mentioned like one of the things, like people say, well, if all the hedge funds, if all the iBuyers, if all the Wall Street buyers quit buying houses, which is for the most part, kind of what's happened in the last 90 days, last 120 days. And people say, why did that happen? I believe that it's shockwaves and things like this that are a variable. So understand, big news there. Sorry about the guys at BlackRock doing that. I'm not happy that it happened, but it is definitely newsworthy. And let me tell you something, not BlackRock, but Blackstone says, we're ready for battle, baby.
So, Eddie, they owned Invitation Homes, which was the largest institutional owner of rentals, single family rentals, about 84,000. And so they jumped in 2012, buy. Then they kind of stopped. They jumped back in 2019, buy. They stopped here a month or so ago. But now they're saying, hey, we've got a $50 billion war chest, and we're just going to sit back and see what happens.
Now, Joe, where was this article at?
That one was in Fortune magazine. Sorry, I didn't print that out. Actually, it was in Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge, and you can go to Zero Hedge, and you can check that out. But it's a great article written by Tyler Durden, and it just came out.
So they're raising $50 billion, and let me tell you what they're thinking, Joe. They're thinking that there's going to be a drop in knife market, and they're going to be opportunistic. So understand, they're saying we're holding it in dry powder, and Joe, we're doing, this is what we think these guys have it right.
Yeah.
Now we think there's a lot of note opportunities that can be done right now. I mean, like there's a lot of windows of opportunities and the windows to come. So understand that they at least somebody's betting $50 billion on the same bet we're betting on. That there's a lot of opportunities to come in the market. Let's talk about the loan origination industry. We mentioned this last time. Joe, I think it's relevant that in 2021, Joe, they did $4.3 trillion in production. And here's what I think is a bigger thing, Joe. In that number, here's what they did. They were making an average. Whoops, I meant to do that in a color that was easier to see there. Dadgum, it's not letting me. It is black. They were making an average about a 3% margin.
Right.
Okay. This year, assuming rates don't skyrocket more than they are, which the risk exists. This year, if that happens, Joe, the bigger story is if that happens, the problem is, Joe, they're making about 1.5% margin right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we've gathered this from multiple sources, too many sources to try to throw up there and to pull this story together. But, Joe, I'm going to give you an analysis, okay? Last year, if they were making $1, okay, this year they're making 25 cents.
Yeah.
So if you want to know why these massive layoffs exist and why we have our eyeballs focused on the loan origination industry and seeing big opportunities to come in that area, first of all, they guaranteed all the bondholders they were going to get their money, and they essentially recoursed all this bond paper, and they had to cut shortfall checks that were mega billions, like as much as $1 billion a week.
Yeah.
And then they're paying interest on the money they had to borrow to go do that. They hadn't gotten reimbursed for it because the loans were modified and they put the payments on the backside of the loan. And now all of a sudden their new production is costing them, their income's down about 25% of what it was, down to 25% of what it was. Then all of a sudden it's not a shocker, Joe, that you see this, right? Here's the catch, Joe. Here's the bigger catch. Rates aren't that cheap. I mean, aren't that expensive.
Yeah.
Right? I
Average
mean,
is 7.77. This is 5.84, 30-year fixed.
So understand it's not the market now that we see as being so dramatic. It's that if the Fed a few hours says the rates are going up, which I think that's a fairly safe bet.
It's a given, I think.
And all of a sudden, then we are down into, if you can't make this work at these rates, how are you going to make it work at higher rates?
Right.
Hello, creative financing. Wow. Okay. The punchline is we rock in this space when conventional lending doesn't solve the problem. Our industry rocks it when when creative financing fills a gap that conventional lending can't fill. And we are pretty much looking like racehorses in the gate, right? Joe, you're on them racehorses. Are you dancing around in that gate right now? Or are you just
raring to go, baby? As you say, chomping at the bit.
Yeah, and it's already happening. Like, it's not like it just, we're waiting. I mean, it's happening, but the story is going over the next, next period of time, the story is going to get better. So Historical rates, as we said, are this, and we see this increase right now, and we think, Joe, this looks dramatic, this increase in rates. And by the way, we just think, as what the old saying goes, you ain't seen nothing yet, right? So,
Eddie, I was just looking. I just got another blurb on my another thing here. Issuance of prime non-agency MBS, mortgage-backed securities, non-agency, non-Fed, Franny, GSE stuff fell off a cliff in the second quarter of 2022.
Yeah, and that, by the way, is commercial loans.
Yeah.
So that's on the commercial side. It's a market condition. I have a question. I asked some of my real estate investor buddies. I say, how do you buy? They tell when they say there's no way that anything can happen to values, and we're talking about investment properties. And I said, okay, how do you buy houses at a 4% capitalization rate and a 7% mortgage market? You know, Joe, I want to challenge our listeners. If you have the answer to that, would you send that to me? Because I want to report that. I feel like it's our obligation, Joe, to tell people how and why. And I don't know the answer to it. I've been doing this a long time, but 42 years. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. So
I got to turn off my blurbs. They just keep popping up, Eddie. I mean,
you're so amped up, Joe. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
I want to tell you this. Even when the pandemic started, and things were happening on a minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour basis, yeah. Joe and I started out with over 100 stories this month to pare it down to show you something that was reasonable in a reasonable period of time to show you. Joe has spent a huge amount of time cutting through the pile. We've bantered back and forth, our whole Note School team, a lot of impact. Thank you, all of our team, for all of you done to help Joe get up here. But Joe sent me his last of this late last night. And I'm just saying, guys, that this story is unfolding. And as you said, Joe, by the second. But we think the key points that we made this weekend. So a friend of mine just threw this on the internet. So, he sourced these charts, Joe. I believe the charts are accurate. I just think he did a good job of kind of aligning them. So I'm going to point out what he did here. So the red represents median home price, Joe.
Yep.
So this is median home price. That's this.
Mm-hmm.
Green represents the 30-year mortgage rates.
Right.
Okay. And blue represents the sentiment chart. So if you're kind of looking for where the market looks like there's an issue, this paints a pretty decent picture. So my friend just, did a little graphics thing and threw all that together. He gathered all this from the same sources that we're using. So he just saved us a little bit of time. Thank you for that. And yeah, that makes a statement, doesn't it, Joe?
That's another mic drop. I mean, it's not fiction. It's what it is.
All right, Joe. This was DS News.
DS News, as reported. This was reported by DS News. The data came from Black Knight, which is, well, they're the bomb in data analytics for the mortgage market. Yeah.
All right. So this is the first look at their Mortgage Monitor report. We've used this report many times. Thank you, Black Knight. You do a killer good job. And our people love for us to do a little book report on it. And the bottom line, Joe, is this: foreclosure starts are up 440%
year over year.
So
that's a pretty big number.
Seems to be, Joe. Joe, if you ask the average person in real estate how many delinquent mortgages there are, I believe they would not know the answer.
Would not.
But here it is. So understand that this is mortgage delinquency and default starts. And the headline said they edge higher. And Joe, the number's going up.
Yep.
It's been about 1.65 million. I was quite surprised because I figured a lot of these people that are getting posted for foreclosure are going to do the right thing and just pay off their mortgage, but the numbers are actually going the wrong direction.
They are going the wrong, and that's not all the number, Eddie. That's, I mean, there's some stuff that's forbearance stuff that's still flushing through the system. So, I would say we're still probably looking at north of 2 million.
Yeah, easy number. There's about 2 million residential mortgages that aren't making a payment, and that's going to be something to look out for. And obviously, we are aggressively in the non-performing note space pursuing that, and so lot to say about that activity level. That's a market niche. I call that the bargain in the market, Joe.
Well, that's the REO. If you were in 2010 and you were buying REOs, right, that's where you should have been. You were buying at 50% of value.
Yeah.
Right here, there's your huckleberry, right?
It is. All right, Joe. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you close this up, but I didn't interrupt our show this time to do a word from our sponsor about our one-day class. But guess what we figure out in these one-day classes? What we figure out in these one-day classes is where is the niche and how do I take advantage of what's happening in the market? How do I find the opportunity in the middle of it? Joe, I'm going to let you have it. Guys, Joe, great job putting this together. You killed it. And guys, we are going to continue to monitor it. We appreciate your patronage. Please share this. If it's meaningful to you, just share it. It helps us out a little bit. And maybe it helps out a friend that you need to do this with. So share it on your social media platforms. And we will keep committing to you to present the information, and you can continue to be a smart decision. Well, Joe, I'll let you have it, sir.
Well, it's like you said, the informed investor is always going to be the smartest investor, and that's what we have to look at, guys. Again, if you want to want more information, I'm tongue-tied here, right, about Note School and what we do. Look, just simply go to noteschool.com/TV. You can learn more about the one-day class that we do, and again, guys, everything is changing quickly. Stay tuned here in just a little bit, about 2:00 Eastern time, for where the rates, where the funds rate are going up, and we'll see what Chairman Powell has to say. But again, noteschool.com/TV. We're just bringing you what's going on out there, and there is a lot going on. As we say every time we close the show, we will see you on the other side. Bye now.